Welcome to part 2 of your introduction to Revit. Again, for those of you who have had Revit, this will be a review. For those of you who have not had Revit, this will be an introduction to the next unit in your book, which is lesson 2. So let's go ahead and open Revit by going down to the window emblem in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and go to Autodesk Revit 2020 and open up Revit. Once Revit is open, we have to select a new template file. So we're going to pick New. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, because of the way the textbook is set up, they are asking you to use the architectural template here on this first pull down. Remember, when we do our projects, we are actually going to go to the Browse button and select the correct template, either residential or commercial, depending on which course this is for. So I'm going to hit Cancel, and I'm going to select the architectural template and say OK. In Revit, we have what we call components. For example, in AutoCAD, if we were going to draw a wall, we would basically have to draw 2 lines that represent the thickness of the wall. And those 2 lines would only be in the dimensions that you would see on that plan. They would not have any elevation or height to those walls. In AutoCAD, we call those unintelligent objects. In Revit, basically everything we do is what we consider a component or an intelligent object. There can be lots and lots of information tied to each component, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. In your textbook, this first chapter is a very, very quick overview. As we get into each part of the project, we'll go into much more detail on each of these types of components. But this is kind of an opportunity just to get your feet wet and get you going in Revit. So if we look over here under Architecture, we have walls, doors, windows, components, column, roof, ceiling, and floor. These are our main categories of components. Keep in mind, if you are going to do a door or a window, you always want to select it from the door or window component. What I'm talking about is that if you try to select a door or window from the component pull down here, it's not going to work for you. We'll come back to that here in just a minute. So the first thing that the book talks about is walls. So let's take a look at walls. If we go here to the wall and we go to the pull down, you see we have wall architectural, wall structural, and wall by face. Of course, for these courses, we are going to use wall architectural. When I click on that, you're going to see that my properties box has changed. So now my properties are associated with a wall. So if I click here, you see in my template, there are already several types of walls in here. I have first listed several exterior walls. Then I have a foundation wall. Then I have these generic walls. In my courses, we do not use anything that is generic unless you are directed to do that. I hope everybody understands that. We do not use generic walls, doors, windows, etc. Then as we go on down, we have some interior walls, and then we have a retaining wall, we have a soffit, and then we get into curtain walls. So let's take a look at the walls. I'm going to start with an exterior wall. Brick and CMU on metal stud. We don't do a lot of that type of construction. That means you're going to have brick on the outside, CMU for probably as a structural type wall, and then metal stud on the interior. Brick on CMU, brick on metal stud, and then it goes on. So I'm going to go with brick on metal stud for an exterior wall. The next thing you'll notice is I actually have a couple of different places I can do the same thing. Right up here I have this green bar. This bar is my controls for the current operation that I'm in. You'll see that the first thing it says is height, and then it says unconnected, and then it says 20 feet. So right now, before I ever start drawing this wall, I am telling it a height, giving it the 3 dimensions. For now, I'm going to leave it at 20 feet. The next thing I have to determine is how am I going to draw that wall? Do I want to draw it from the center of the wall, the finished face exterior, the finished face interior? Which one of those do I want to do? Typically, we do not draw walls from center lines. We typically either draw them from interior or exterior structural portions of the wall, meaning metal studs, wood studs, something along that line. So again, typically we're not going to use a center line, so I'm going to go ahead and pick finished face exterior. I definitely want to have a check mark here where it says chain. That will let me start to draw a wall and continue to draw walls until I am done drawing them. If I don't have a check mark in there, when I draw a wall segment, it's going to stop and end, and then I have to start again. Offset, I can offset it from another object. If I want to do a curved wall, radius is where I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on radius and I'm going to tell it what I want the radius of that wall to be. And then I'm going to leave this as the default. So now I have kind of set those things here. You'll notice that now that is also reflected down here. So where I have my unconnected height of 20 feet, I can do that here, or I can do that here. If I change this to 10 feet here, you notice it changes down here. So again, some of these are done up here, some are done down here. Now, so how do I know exactly what this wall is? If I go to edit type, it's going to bring up my type properties. This is where you can see what the wall is constructed of, and you can also start to see some of the information that is tied to this wall. Walls in general are a family. We have families of walls, doors, windows, plumbing fixtures, etc. Those are considered families. The type is a subcategory of the family. So if we look at the type here, it says exterior brick on metal stud. We already knew that. That's what we picked. If I look down here in the window, you're going to see I have a category for structure that actually will let me edit that. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. This talks about how the wall operates, whether at the ends of the walls, is it going to actually wrap the exterior material around it, or is it going to insert? However, typically we don't need to change that. Right now, based on the construction of this wall, which we haven't looked at yet, we know the total thickness of this wall is 1 foot 1 7/8. If I make changes to the materials that's composing that wall, that number may change. The function is an exterior, because this is an exterior wall. Exterior walls are constructed differently than interior walls. The graphics section here has to do with how it's going to show on a two-dimensional floor plan. The materials and finish, the structural part of this is a metal stud. In residential, we are going to use wood stud. In commercial, we are going to use metal studs. Then we can see that it even gets into some analytical properties. Whoever constructed this wall, they tied all of this information into the materials there. Who might be interested in this right here? Since you can't answer my question, I will answer it myself. Our mechanical, electrical engineers are going to be interested in that. It's going to help them design our heating and cooling systems, because they're going to know how much transfer there is between the exterior surfaces and the interior surfaces. You can see down here, we can add all kinds of additional information to this wall. If we can add, if this is a wall that's being provided by a company, we can put their website in here, the name of the company that's manufacturing it, if it's a model, if it's a type. All of this can be customized. Cost, we can tie cost into this. Again, we're going with just the defaults, but when you work for a particular company and if they do this type of thing, a lot of that information would be filled in. What we're concerned about is this area right here, about how the wall is constructed. So I'm going to click on Edit, and now you can see I have my Edit Assembly. Again, at the very top, I have my basic wall family. Then my type is exterior brick on metal stud. The total thickness is 1 foot 1 7/8, and the resistance, and then the thermal mass. Over here again, it says my height is 20 feet. That's because that's what this is set at for the default, even though I changed it over here to 10 feet. If I always want this wall to be 10 feet, I can change that to 10 feet. But typically, I make my changes in here and just leave this as it is. The next thing you're going to notice is this is every part and piece of that particular wall. Right here it says exterior side, so that's starting from the outside and working in. Down here it says interior side, that's from the inside working to the outside. So if I look here, I have got basically 9 parts to this wall. I'm going to have a function. There are only a few things that can be put into here. If it's structure, it needs to say structure. If it's substrate, it needs to say substrate, thermal air layer, and we'll talk a lot more about wall construction when we get into our projects. 2 layers for finish and a membrane layer. So everything has to have a function assigned to it. The material. So if I look, starting on the outside, my first finish is my brick. Now I can modify this brick by going into the material. I could change this to stone if I wanted to. And again, I'm not going to get into this real heavy right now, but we can change any finish that we want on any of this stuff. Typically, a common brick is 3 5/8 inches thick, so it's important to put the correct thicknesses in here. Between the brick and the first substrate or the exterior substrate, we typically have an air barrier. And again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on this, but they've shown that this airspace is 3 inches. Then we have a protection. If we put membrane layer over here, we are not going to be able to put a dimension into here. If I try to put 3, where this is 3 inches, I try to put 0 in here, it's not going to allow me to do that. So again, you can see this goes from the outside to the inside. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want you to understand how these walls are put together. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to go ahead and say apply, and say OK. Now, I am ready to start drawing. So I'm going to pick this wall. And again, I want to stay inside of these elevation markers. We can move them, but for right now, for my purposes, I'm going to leave them where they are, and I'm going to start drawing. I typically want to draw from left to right. If I do that, my exterior finish will be on the outside and my interior finish will be on the inside. If I go left and down this way, my brick is going to be on the inside and my interior finish is going to be on the outside. So I'm just going to click here in my screen, and the first thing you're going to notice is there is a temporary dimension. Now, I can just kind of pull this. Say if I wanted this to be 100 feet, I can just pull it to where it gets to be 100 feet. But it'd be a lot easier for me just to come in, and I don't even have to go and do anything. I can just go to my keyboard and I can type in 100 feet and hit enter, and it draws it exactly 100 feet. Another difference between Revit and AutoCAD is AutoCAD thinks in inches. Revit thinks in feet. So again, I gotta think that. So you will see me typically always put feet and inches in, no matter which program I'm in. That way I don't make a mistake and I don't have to stop and think about what I'm doing. We don't really have an ortho button, but as you see, as we draw, you see that angle there. So I want to make sure I'm at 90 degrees and it kind of snaps into place. And say I want this wall to be 50 feet. I'm just going to type in 50. I could just put 50, but I'm going to type in 50 feet. Then I'm going to come this direction, and again I want to make sure I'm horizontal, and when I get over here close to the end of my wall, you can see I get this dashed alignment line. So I'm going to click there, and then if I just bring this up and get close, it will go ahead and connect. So as you're looking at this, and let me zoom in a little bit, you're thinking, okay, we talked about this wall having all kinds of parts and pieces, but all I see are two lines. If you remember in the first video, I talked about these boxes down here. Again, we are on course. If I set that to fine, and now I zoom in, I can see all of the parts and pieces. This area from here to here is representing the brick. This area from here to here is representing the airspace. There is no line here that represents the membrane because it is extremely thin and it does not affect the thickness of our wall. This area from here to here is the exterior substrate, typically a plywood type material. Then the area from here to here is my structure, and in this case it's a metal stud. From here to here, again, I have a vapor barrier in there, but it does not show as far as a line, but it is in my type and my breakdown. And so from there to there is my gypsum board. That's how we come up with the 1 foot 1 7/8. So now I've created some exterior walls. So now I'm going to go to wall and I'm going to pick an interior wall. And again, they're in alphabetical order. And I'm going to just pick a 4 7/8. Again, I need to decide on the height. Right now, this is set to a constraint, and we'll talk about constraints more later. I really want this to be unconnected, and I want to set the height at 8 feet. I don't want to draw from the center line. I want to draw from the finished face exterior. And say I wanted to put a room here that was 10 by 10. I'm kind of a lazy drafter, so basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm just going to draw in a couple of walls. Now I'm going to zoom. If you want to get out of a command, just hit the escape key and that will take you out. So now I want this room to be approximately 10 by 10, or to be 10 by 10 on the inside clear. So if I click on this wall, you'll see it gives me a temporary dimension. If I zoom in here, you see that that temporary dimension is going from the center of the wall, and it's also going to the center of this wall. And I said I wanted my 10 feet to be from the inside to the inside. You have some little nodes here. If I click on that node, you notice it's going to move from outside to center to inside. So that's where I want it to be. And I want to do the same thing over here. I'm going to click on the node until it's on the inside. So now I'm reading from inside to inside, and it says 11 foot 0 3/16. I said I wanted that to be 10 feet. I have this wall selected, so if I change this dimension, this is the wall that's going to move. If I had selected this wall, then this wall would move. So if I just click on that box where the dimension is, and I type in 10 feet, you will see the wall move to the left. So now I have a clear inside dimension. We're going to do the same thing here. I don't want my exterior wall to move, but I want my interior wall to be 10 feet inside clear. Again, I'm going to click on the node. and I'm going to click on another node. And now I'm going to change that to 10 feet. So you can see how easy it is to just place walls and get the dimensions correct. So now, if we wanted to, and this is a really good habit to get into, after you draw one or two things, it's always good to go look in 3 dimensions to make sure that you did not miss anything. So I am going to go here to my default 3D view, and you can see these are my interior walls, these are my exterior walls. The box down here next to where we chose fine, right now I am in my hidden line view. If I change that to shaded, it will actually start to show some detailing of this wall. Kind of gives me the colors so I kind of can see that. If I click on realistic, and now I go in and zoom, you will see that the detailing on the brick is even more detailed. So again, as I'm drawing, I can see things in 3 dimensions. Again, I have my view cube over here that I can move things, turn it, etc. I can also hold down my shift key and my mouse button, and I can free orbit to do however that I want. So now I'm ready to go back into my plan view and to make some other changes. So this is where I need to work with my project browser. If you look down here, and if I bring these out, the first area we have are floor plans, then we have ceiling plans, we have 3D views, and we have elevations. So before going to my plan view, I'm going to just click on one of my elevations. And as you can see, it's creating my elevations for me as we're drawing. These are the levels that we currently have set, and we'll talk about levels again at another time. But just to show you, if I really wanted my second floor to be at 12 feet, I can just click on that number and I can change it, and you noticed it moved. Now if I'd had my walls constrained to that, then my walls would have moved with it. If I want to undo something, I just click on my undo button up here at the top, and now you see it's back to 10 feet. So now I want to go back into my floor plan. So these are how I manipulate through my different views. We were working on level 1, so if I double click on it, and now you see it's highlighted, I am back in level 1. That is a quick explanation of how to use the wall command. Again, the next thing in the textbook talks about are doors. Right here you have a door component. You always want to pull your doors from the door component button. So if I click on the doors, and you'll see my properties box changed, and if I pull this down, you'll see right now I only have one type of door in here, and it's an interior single flush door. Depending on which course that you are in, commercial or residential, in residential you're going to use 80-inch doors, in commercial you're going to use 84-inch doors, and we'll talk about that a lot more later on. So I really want some type of an exterior door. So now that I'm in this, over here to the right I have a button that says load family. So I'm going to click on that button, and it's going to take me to a whole bunch of additional components that I can bring into my drawing. We don't want all of these components loaded into our drawing to begin with, because it will make our files way too big as soon as we start. They are broke down into different areas, and we'll talk about that more later on, but for right now I want to go to the doors category. Again, I have some commercial, I have some hardware, I have some residential, and then I just have some general doors out here. So I want an exterior double door. So I'm going to go into residential, and you'll see I have double exterior, double full glass wood clad. That sounds pretty good. And it does say exterior, so that is the proper door. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to say when I do that, you'll see it gives me a picture, so I kind of have an idea of what it looks like. I'm going to say open. Now I can pick all kinds of sizes. The nice thing about Revit is it's going to give you standard sizes. You can make your own sizes, but be very cautious of doing that, because that means you are creating a custom item or a custom component. Custom items cost more money. So again, Revit is very smart in the way they set it up, that they typically use products that are in the right dimensions and the way that they're constructed. So I want a 6 foot wide, so I have a choice here of one that's 7 foot tall, or I have a choice of one that's 8 foot tall. So I'm just going to go with 7 feet for right now. Actually, I think I have some more choices in here. I actually have a 6'8" also. If I was doing residential, I would pick that one. If I'm doing commercial, I would pick that one. So I'm going to go with that one. And you'll notice out here, I really can't do anything. But once I'm in the space here, you see I get the circle with the line through it. That's because the doors have to be tied to the walls. Now, as I bring my cursor towards the wall, you see my door is starting to show up. So if I want it to swing out, I just kind of pull it towards the outer edge of the wall. If I want it to swing in, I pull it towards the inside. I can also change it after the fact. So for right now, I'm just going to place this in here, and I've actually got it centered. If you look at the temporary dimensions, it's 49 foot 5 and 1/16 and 49 foot 5 and 1/16. So I'm just going to click. You'll see that Revit very nicely trims out the wall. It puts a frame in, and it shows the door swing. Again, if I want to change the way that it swings, I have some arrows here. And this one really doesn't make a difference because it's a double door as far as going horizontally, but vertically I can change the direction of swing. So now let's actually go look at this in our 3D view. Here is the interior of that door, and if you look at it, it has a lot of detailing to it. It shows the frame, it shows the mullions, it shows the glass. We can actually see through it. If I use my orbit and I rotate around and I look at it from the outside, again, I can see I have a threshold here, I have my door stop, and I could even add hardware to this door. I can change the finish of the door, I can change the type of glass that's in it, so I have a whole lot of flexibility. So now I'm going to go back to my floor plan. And basically windows work the same way. You want to pull windows from this menu right here. So if I click on window, again, I can see what's already loaded in here. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use some that are here. I'm going to use this window, which is 36 by 72, and I'm going to place it in the wall. And I'm going to place another one over here. So you'll see, first of all, that the glass is on the outside on this window and the glass is on the inside on this window. I really want those to match. Typically we try to put the glass more to the inside so we don't have water issues at these locations. So I'm going to show my window there. Sometimes you have to go into the 3D view to make sure that you haven't put the exterior frame on the interior or vice versa. So now I'm going to go back to my 3D view, and if I use my orbit key again, you see I can see the window. If I go back to my south elevation, now I can see my window, my door, etc. I again can change this to fine, and I again can change this to realistic, so I can actually see what it truly looks like. So now we have done the door and the window. The next part of the book talks about roofs. Roofs are pretty amazing in Revit. Revit can create a roof for you when you have no idea really what you want to do. It can help you in the design process. Again, we're just going to do this very quickly and kind of walk through it just like the book does. And when we get ready to do roofs, we'll go into much more detail. This is kind of just to get you to be able to be familiar with the menu and kind of how things work. So if we click on roof, you'll see we have roof by footprint, roof by extrusion, and roof by face. We're going to use roof by footprint. It says you have created the roof on the lowest level. Would you like to move it to? Yes, I have not created a roof level, so for now I am going to leave it on level 2 because that's the highest that my wall is. And I'm going to say yes. You notice now my menu has changed. I'm in my Modify Create Roof Footprint. The tool that we picked to do the roof, again, I would select what kind of material. And again, in my classes, we don't use generic unless we are directed to in the book. So for now, I'm just going to stay with generic. We have some shingle roof. We have an insulated metal deck roof. Again, we can add to this. We can change these, etc. So I'm just going to stay with the generic 12-inch roof for now. I selected Create Roof by Footprint. So this tool right here is already selected. What that tool means is I just come over here, select it, pick my wall, and you'll see it did a line, a purple line on there. I really should probably have some kind of a overhang. So I'm going to hit undo, and I'm going to come over here to my overhang, and I'm just going to change this to 1 foot. Now if I go back to my pick tool and I pick my wall, you'll see it's giving me a dashed line when I pick this side of the wall. If I pick this side of the wall, it gives me a dashed line. So that's showing me where my overhang is. I definitely don't want my overhang on the inside, so I'm going to pick out here. And now my magenta line is out here. Then I'm going to come over here and pick. It automatically connects everything for me. And again, I'm going to come over here. You'll notice at each one of these lines, there's a little slope arrow. On this one, because I have this one actually selected, it's telling me my roof pitch is 9 inches in the horizontal, in the vertical, and 12 inches in the horizontal. I'm going to leave that as it is. So right now, because I have my roof sloping this direction, this direction, this direction, and this direction, the ends are going to be a hip. So if I wanted this to be a gable on this end, I can just pick this line and I can say define slope, and you'll see that little slope arrow went away. Same thing here, define slope, and now this side is going to slope up, this side is, and this side is going to form a gable. So I'm going to go back and put the slope arrows back on here, just doing the opposite of what I did. Once I get this done, I click on this check mark, and hopefully everything works. So because I set my roof at the height of these exterior walls, it's saying, do you want to go ahead and attach them? If I don't attach them to the perimeter or the bottom of the roof, there's going to be some gaps in there. So I'm going to go ahead and say attach. Now, if we go to the 3D view and we zoom out, you see we now have a roof. And again, I just picked generic, but you can see here is a hip all the way around. That is a very simplistic way to do a roof. The last 2 parts of lesson 2 have to do with annotation and dimensioning and printing. I'm quickly going to just kind of show you where the annotation information is, because for your assignment, you're basically going to take lesson 2 and you're going to go through it step by step. So it's going to tell you exactly what to do. But again, I want to kind of show you where everything is at and how they work. If I go over here to the Annotate tab, this is where my dimension toolbar is. The dimensioning in Revit is a little bit easier than it is in AutoCAD. Basically, we can mostly use the Align tool to do almost every type of linear type dimension. We still need to use our angular and our diameter and that sort of thing. So I'm going to click on Align and say I want to show that 10 feet that I did in here. If I come over here to this wall, you'll see that it's picking the center line of the wall. Well, I want it again the interior of that wall. So if I slide my cursor to the left and I hit the tab key, you'll see it picked that exterior wall or the interior wall. If I come over here, you see it's picking the exterior here. And if I keep hitting the tab key, it will keep moving to different ones. I can pick that one, I can pick that one, or that one. Well, I wanted mine to be the interior, so I'm going to pick there. And then I'm going to come over and I want to do the same thing here. So I hit my tab key, click, and then I just place. Say I decided I really wanted this room to be 11 feet. Again, and I want this wall to move. So if I pick that wall, you notice my dimension went to a temporary dimension again. So if I just click on that and put in 11 feet, you're going to see this wall move to the right. So our dimensions are nice in the fact of how they work, but you can also modify things with your dimensions. If I chose this wall and I wanted to change that, thinking I'm doing the interior wall and then 12 feet, oops, move my outside wall. So I need to make sure whichever wall I select or item I select, that is the one that's going to be moving. It's going to have you put in some room tags and some things like that, but again, it's going to walk you through it step by step. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this video when you're just going to go in and do it that way. When you get done, you're really not going to print anything, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's kind of the quick and dirty on lesson 2. We will get into each one of these in a lot more detail. So we'll talk about your assignments here in the next video.